Get one more bottle. Don't want. Get one more new bottle.
I, Monica Ella of Computer Science Department, welcome you all to Second International Conference on Data Analytics and Learning 2022. I now welcome our esteemed Chief Guest, Dr. H. Raghav Rao, Professor at University of Texas, United States. Dr. H. R. Rao was named the AT&T Distinguished Chair in Infrastructure Assurance and Security at the University of Texas at San Antonio Helios Alvarez College of Business in Jan 2016. Professor Rao was inducted into UTSA Academy of Distinguished Researchers in 2019. His interests are in the areas of management, information system, decision support system, e-business, emergency response management, and artificial intelligence. He has authored or co-authored more than 200 technical papers, of which more than 125 are published in archival journals. Dr. Rao was a recipient of the AIS Fellow Award for 2021, and he was also inaugural recipient of the Bright Internet Award for his contribution to the Information System discipline by KMIS, the Korea Society of Management Information System. In 2018, Professor Rao was awarded the International Federation for Information Processing and Outstanding Service Award for significant service contribution to the field of information system and information system security. Rao has received Best Paper and Best Paper Runner-Up Award at ISR, AMCIS and ICIS. Dr. Rao is a past chair of IFIP, the Working Group for Information Security System. Dr. Rao was ranked 3 in publication productivity internationally into 2011 Communication for Information Study. On behalf of AIET Education and Foundation, it's a pleasure and honor to have you with us, sir. I now request Dr. Manjana to florally welcome Dr. H. Raghav Rao, sir. We also have with us the session chairperson, Dr. Baswaraj Anami from Kelly University, Hubli. Dr. Baswaraj is a well-known academician and a researcher from India in the field of computer science and engineering. He possesses a vast teaching experience of 32 years in computer science discipline. Professor Anami is a doctorate in computer science from Mysore University in 2003 and a postgraduate from IIT Madras in 1986. Apart from mainstream work, Dr. Anami has played a vital role in designing curriculum to many of the universities. Currently, he is the chairperson of Board of Studies, Vishweshwaraya Technology University, Belgaum. His research in speech processing and artificial intelligence. Dr. Anami is a member of editorial board for many of the reputed journals and chaired many national and international conferences. On behalf of AIET Education and Foundation, I request our HOD to florally welcome Dr. Anami, sir. I now request Dr. Rao to enlighten us about phishing email detection using persuasion cues. Over to you, sir.
So okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Monica, for the introduction once again, and I'd like to thank everyone for inviting me here, and particularly Professor Shekhar and Professor Kotari. So before I start, I have a quiz. So can all of you see this on the screen? At the back, you can see this? Huh? What do you see? Okay, so it's www.aiet.org.in and www.buffalo.edu, right? So the question is, once I hit,
Other use ಮಾಡಿ. We can make use of this one. This mic is.
okay. So the question is, once I hit return, what will happen? Anyone would like to respond? AIET.org.in is our, right? And Buffalo.edu was where I was before, and there are a lot of connections with Buffalo in this campus among the professors. So I thought I'd use that as an example. So once I hit return, what will happen? Anyone?
You see AIET websites.
Sorry.
AIET websites.
You see the AIT website. Okay, that is one answer. Anybody else have any other answer? Error. Okay, that's the second answer. Anybody else have a third answer? 404 error. That is considered in error only. What did you say?
Page not found error. Page not found error.
Oh, page not found. Okay, that's the third answer. Fourth answer, anybody? Okay, now you can guess. Yeah, and?
Backup process.
Huh?
Backup process is that URL will be converted into IP address when the DNS.
True, but what are you going to see? Are you going to see Alva website? Alva. Okay, can you just hit return? So what you see here is you are about to log into www.buffalo.edu. With the username www%2eAIET2e and the website does not require authentication. It might be an attempt to trick you. You see that? Is www.buffalo the site you want to visit? Now, this is the Firefox web browser. This gives you an error message, but this has probably been updated. If you look at an old web browser, then it does not give you a message. Now, what is happening here? The web browser is parsing the address, and the way it parses the address is from right to left. So it is essentially going to pick up everything after the @sign. So technically, you would be getting to www.buffalo.edu, not Alva. Do you know this? How many of you knew this? Okay, how many of you know it now? Okay. Okay. So this is what phishing basically is, because most people read left to right, unless you are from South Asia. So most people read left to right, and you think that because the Alva website is first, you think that the browser is going to the Alva website, but actually the browser is going to the website on the right hand side of the ad side. So we'll come back to this issue a little bit later. Okay, we can ask
Okay.
So when I was asked to give a talk here, I asked Professor Shekhar, what should I talk on? He said, anything you want. So I finally decided to do a talk on phishing. How many of you have actually been phished at some point of time in your life? How many of you have heard of phishing? Okay, but we have all been careful, not been ever phished. Okay, very good. That clearly shows that you have your defense mechanisms in place, which is a good sign. But you can't be so complacent because you just got the first quiz wrong. Right? Most of you got the first quiz wrong. So here there are things to be aware of. So a lot of you have, okay, the next question is, have any of you been actually phished but not fallen for it? Nobody? So for example, have you had an instance where you get a message saying that if you click on this link then you will get 5,000 rupees? You got that kind of, okay, so everybody has got that, correct? Okay, so I'm going to be talking about that. And the issue is, as cybersecurity folks or as people who must defend themselves against phishing attacks, one of the first things is the issue of detection. So how do you detect a phish? And in this lecture I'm going to be talking about persuasion cues. I have time till what time? One hour. Okay, everybody will be hungry. Okay, I'll try to go fast because I can sense. So phishing is technically a form of identity theft based on deception. And I'll first give a phishing overview and talk about the psychology of security, which is basically a short diversion, and then actually get to phishing email detection using persuasion cues. So this is an interesting cartoon. So this guy says, I have a new hobby, it's called phishing. I send fake banking emails to gullible executives. Then I find out their financial information and use it to steal the money they don't deserve. And the phishing email is, dear customer, this is your bank. We forgot your social security number and password. Why don't you send them here so we can protect your money? And this person is saying it looks legit. So clearly it is an illegitimate email, and if you fall for it, then you basically would be losing a lot of your money, right? So let us first start with an overview of phishing. What you see here is basically a phishing attack life cycle where, and I'm focusing mostly on email. So phisher sends a fraudulent email that induces the recipient to visit a website, and in that there would be a link. So the phisher is supposed to, or the recipient is supposed to enter a valid username and password into the fraudulent website. The phisher records that information and then basically impersonates the victim and transfers funds from the victim's account or causes other damage. Now if you have good anti-phishing tools, then of course it will prevent a phishing attack. The question is, what is a good anti-phishing tool? There are a lot of tools available, but it seems as though the actual bad guys are doing better each time, and they learn. So that's where the conference topic comes into picture. They learn and they make their attacks better and better each time. In the last first quarter of 2022, we saw a lot of attacks. Now this is from a company called APWG, which essentially tracks this. And they found that the largest number of phishing attacks are the financial, then you have webmail, software as a service, the e-commerce, social media, crypto, payment, logistics and others. So whatever area it is, you will find attacks going on all the time. And we do find significant situations where there are significant attacks. For example, the CEO of Citibank a few years ago was a guy by the name of Vijay Pandit, I think. And his CIO was targeted and they lost a lot. The Citibank lost a lot of money, not as an individual but as a company. The last few years we've all been seeing COVID, and these are COVID related topics in phishing URLs. So whether it be in the context of economy and government programs or pharmacies, hospitals, vaccines, drugs, tasting. So the phishers, the hackers, they use different topics and come up with mechanisms to make people, make vulnerable people targets. Now, you might ask, how would one become a target through economy and government programs? So the government has some scheme where they will give some money to people who are, let's say, suffering from COVID. Then the fisher says, okay, we are sending you this links, sign on and you will make some money. And the unsuspecting person would essentially fall prey to that. Or there might be a vaccination link which says that if you, once you click on this, then you can go and get your free vaccination, and people might fall for that. So the fishers are looking out for ways in which they can fool the unsuspecting recipient of the email. In this particular lecture, I'm going to be talking mostly about email. So, and typically you're looking essentially at deceptive appearances. So, for example, so notice here, href equals quote unquote http fisher.com. Now this you don't see. That is actually not transferred to the user. The user basically sees this, but when the user clicks on this link, then it goes to the fisher.com. Or the example that I just gave you, this is HSBC USA, which is a bank in the USA. HSBCUSA.com, you are reading from left to right and you think it is actually a bank, whereas at fisher.com. Or obfuscated links, URLs containing encoded characters that hide the meaning of the URL. So for example, every character has a unique code, right? All of you are familiar with that. So if you write an A, you can write it in one kind of code or a different kind of code. The code could be different. The fisher essentially could use a different code and it will look the same to the person who is looking at the website, but eventually it takes you to a bad website. Or obscured links. So write a JavaScript that can obscure the link, so the link is behind the image. And when you click on an image, you are actually going to a link. So, so there are various different ways that that fishers actually get to deceive people. Now here's another example. Hide URLs by using hexadecimal character codes to represent numbers with IP address. So here, see http www.visa.com, and visa.com is a credit card company, right? Everybody thinks it's a legitimate company. But you have this @ sign, and then after the @ sign, you have this huge bunch of hexadecimal numbers. Now that hexadecimal number actually converts to a URL, which is sitting behind. So if you pointed out that there's a URL conversion that is going on behind the scene, which is what this is doing. But again, the user, the person who is browsing the web has no clue what is on this side, and so falls for the fish. And then a lot of fishers, they obscure a URL by using a redirection service. So there's first a phishing link, you type in your information in the phishing link, and then when you get out, they automatically have a redirection back to visa.com in this particular case. So that's really clever, because the person who is being fished does not realize that he or she has been fished. Because after inputting all the information, it goes back to the legitimate site. So when the person leaves the site, they think that they're actually on the legitimate site. And here, switching ports. Scammers occasionally use other ports to hide the location, and in this case, so that the citibankonline.com, and then there's a port at the end, 8034. Now that port may actually not be a legitimate port. But again, most people will not actually know what is going on here, particularly if there are a bunch of numbers. I think it is legit. So these are the various tricks that have been utilized in phishing, and the concept that I mentioned earlier about Citibank CIO being phished, that is known as spear phishing. So basically it's a combination of personal targeted attack. So the way they did the spear phishing attack on the CIO was, CIO had gone to a RSA conference. RSA, how many of you are familiar with RSA? No, okay. So RSA is Divesh, Noel and Adman. There are three scientists who basically created public key cryptography, but there's a huge security conference that is based on the names, and every year it's in San Francisco. So the CIO for Citibank had visited the San Francisco RSA conference, and the phishing attack was targeted in the sense that, dear so and so, I had met you at the conference, and that's how the conversation started. So it is by the fisher who knew that this guy had actually gone to the conference in San Francisco, and because he prefaced whatever he was doing with something familiar. In this case, it was the RSA conference. The CIO, his defenses fell down. So the fact that the CIO himself was phished was quite amazing, and Citibank lost a lot of money in that case. The other most well-known case is when before Hillary Clinton, before Donald Trump became president, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump were in the election, and Hillary Clinton's chief of staff, his name was John Podesta. His email was essentially compromised. So the Trump's political consultants knew everything that the Democrats were planning. So it was basically information warfare. Because they knew everything that what the Democrats were planning, they were easily able to mount counterattacks on Hillary Clinton. And of course, this shows that Hillary Clinton lost the election. So that's spear phishing. Now, the spear phish that John Podesta referred to was very straightforward. It basically said there is a problem with your server. Please log in here to fix it. So John sent that to his IT staff. And his IT staff responded, his IT staff realized that it is a phish, but when they responded, the guy forgot to put, so he said it is fine, instead of saying it is not fine. While typing, he forgot the not. So very simple. And when he forgot the not, he didn't realize it till 2 days later. By that time, this guy had already clicked and given all the information. So such simple ways of phishing, and people fall for it. So hacked email, what can it be used for? So of course you lose your privacy, you lose your photos, you lose your messages. It can be used for spam. So people can hack your email and then start using it for spam. Or harvest other email characteristics. You have Dropbox, software, license keys. Or use other people's emails for employment. Or of course, the one that really gets to the bottom of the financial pyramid is your going to bank accounts or ransom or change the billing and so on. So that brings us to there's been a lot of work done on anti-phishing techniques. Of course, eventually phishing is a classification problem. Right? Is an email that you get, is it a phish or is it not a phish? Has it been sent by someone legitimate or not? So, so whatever anti-phishing techniques exist, for intelligent, how many of you have done machine learning? Okay, about one-fourth of you. So these days you find a lot of intelligent machine learning techniques that are being used in anti-phishing models. So these techniques include things like associative classifications, which are basically a lot of if-then rules. So the email is sent through a filter that will check. It has got a lot of if-then rules, if X, then Y, and so on. And then it says, okay, email is a phish, or email is not a phish, or email is spam, or not spam. And these filters will automatically send the email to a spam box or some kind of a repository where you can go and later go and check it. So you have associative classifications, you have dynamic self-structuring networks, and then you have dynamic rule induction, and this of course has come into the picture because there are often a very large number of rules that need to be brought in, particularly if it is phishing at the organization level. And so the question comes, if the filter has to go through all these rules, then it slows down the system enormously. And so there has to be a mechanism to actually intelligently throw out rules that are not pertinent and apply rules that are pertinent. And so there are various different types of anti-phishing techniques. And this table essentially gives you a quick and dirty look at the different types of anti-phishing techniques that exist. So now the machine learning technique that is used in some of these the decision tree, rule induction, the associated classification, the neural network, fuzzy logic, and the vector machines. So I won't go into the details of these, but there's a whole area of research that goes on in these, trying to fight with the fisher, and of course the fishers get more and more intelligent as time goes by. So yesterday I was talking to Professor Dept, and he mentioned that these days there's a lot of interest in the education going on multi-faculty universities. So not just the College of Engineering, but let's say College of Engineering, College of Science, College of Arts, and so on. So one of the areas where phishing draws on a lot is psychology. So let me divert a little bit and then come back to phishing here. So phishing is of course a part of security. It's a topic which comes under the area of cybersecurity. So if any of you, how many of you are studying cybersecurity? 1, 2, okay, 3, okay, not too many. So phishing is a topic under cybersecurity, but cybersecurity is a large topic, and one of the other areas, non-computer science areas, that it draws on is psychology. And part of the reason is that even though your technical tools that are used for defense purposes, like your antivirus or anti-phishing or whatever, firewall and so on, ultimately it comes down to the human, right? It's the human who is the weakest link in the chain, right? So the science of human behavior is basically psychology. So psychology has a big part to play. So the reality of security, of course, is mathematical, and we are looking at probability of different risks and effectiveness of different countermeasures. And security is a feeling. So this was a question that I had in a couple of lectures a couple of days ago. Let me ask here also. How many of you lock your doors? Lock the doors of the house or the apartment when you go to bed? Okay, everybody. How many of you are married here? I know some people are not accepting the fact that they are married. I know there are some people here who are married but are not married. So the question, the point that I am trying to raise is, did you know that the largest number of murders are committed by spouses? This is targeted to those who are married. So, of course, those of you who are not married and intend to marry, please keep this in mind. But for those of you who are married, notice that you are more worried about the outside the threat than the inside the threat. Right? So you are blocking the door of your house so that no outsider should come in, but the threat is actually inside the house. Right? So the point is that you are psychologically, you are trusting the spouse. And psychologically, you are not trusting the outside, whereas actually it may be the opposite. So the point is, psychology becomes important, and it is particularly important in the area of phishing, of course, but in a lot of cybersecurity topics. Now let me introduce you to a couple of very important, I would say, breakthroughs in economics. So remember, now we are coming into economics as well. This concept of bounded rationality, and this has something to do with analytics. So that's the connection. So how many of you heard of Herbert Simon? One. Okay. So Herbert Simon, he got a Nobel Prize in economics. He was a professor at Carnegie Mellon University. He was a professor of economics, psychology, and of management. He had multiple positions. And so before Herbert Simon, all economists used to think that humans are rational, humans can optimize decisions. But Herbert Simon said, no, that is not true. Humans are rational, but it is bounded. And it is bounded because humans have limited computational skills. It is bounded because humans have limited amount of memory. And so humans have to go through what is called bounded rationality in the process of decision making. So for example, Herbert Simon gave this example. So if you are trying to go to making a decision about going to a restaurant for dinner, an optimal solution would require knowing all the constraints, knowing the nutrition values, knowing the costs, etc., and coming up with the best solution. But humans don't work like that. So if you have to go to a restaurant, they'll say, okay, today is something special to celebrate, so we'll not go to a cheap restaurant, but we'll go to, and we can't go too expensive because I'm not rich enough yet, I don't have a job yet. So we'll go to a medium range restaurant. So basically what that does, it eliminates all the potential options that you have, which are in the cheaper range and in the more expensive range. And then you may say, okay, today I feel like having Chinese, so that automatically throws out all the Italian, throws out all the Indian restaurants. So you have essentially narrowed substantially by taking these decisions, right? And then Chinese will say, okay, I like Mandarin versus Szechuan or something, and then ultimately come up with that. And then finally you have to say, okay, location, I need to see, cannot be too far from campus, cannot be too close to campus, because if I'm too close to campus, somebody else can see me, right? So that was a concept that Herbert Simon brought into picture, which essentially got him, and then computational, so that is a computational ability, and memory ability. So for example, if you go to a coffee or a tea guy, you can say, give me 1/2 coffee, right? Or 1/2 tea. Or you can even say 1/4. But if you tell the tea guy, give me 1 in 10, and 10 of you are there, he'll say, get lost. Right? So it's easy for him to compute 1/2, maybe even 1/4, but once you start getting beyond 10, it becomes very difficult to compute. That's the analogy. And then memory, people don't have a lot of memory. They can, for short-term memory, it's supposed to 7 plus or minus 2 is supposed to be the magic number. So you can probably remember 7 people. If I introduce you to 7 people now, you can remember the names. But 8, 9, it will become very hard for you to remember. So those are the two concepts which Herbert Simon came up with, which essentially got him the Nobel Prize in economics. The second is the psychology of risk, and then Kahneman and Tversky were two professors of psychology, and they came up with a concept of prospect theory, which I'll talk about shortly. So, Tversky, of course, passed away. Unfortunately, he passed away early. But Kahneman eventually got it was a joint work between Kahneman and Tversky. Kahneman eventually got a Nobel Prize in economics for getting an understanding of the psychology of risk. And in fact, Kahneman had never taken an economics course in his life, but he got the Nobel Prize in economics because of this concept. So I'll talk about that briefly. And then, of course, today you have neuroscience also, which basically is how the brain perceives these things. So that typically is very difficult. You have to put wires on your head and see what how the decisions are made. So all these things are not directly related to security, but of course they are indirectly related, and the concept of risk becomes very important. For example, in this cartoon, these guys are perceiving a risk. There's a big rock out here. Then these guys are assessing. This is what Dr. Nagabhushan today was talking about, assessment. And then here, risk management. So these guys are running away, right? So this is of course a cartoon, but still, the point being that you have to use your gut a lot of the time, and that actually quotes back to many 100,000 years ago when all of us originated in Africa. So the evolution from the monkey to the human happened in Africa, and then of course we migrated. So in those days, people had to make on-the-spot decisions. Is that a leopard? Do I need to run away? So they would get an understanding of the situation, like in this case, and make an on-the-spot decision as to how to manage that risk. So gut comes into the picture a lot, and so that's where Kahneman and Tversky's prospect theory comes into the picture. Now, before Kahneman and Tversky, all economists used to think that people have subjective values. What they would have for gains is exactly the same as losses. So if you look at this, on the y-axis is the value, on the x-axis is the outcome. So this is the gains quadrant, this is the losses quadrant. So economists thought that basically a straight line. So if you get 50 rupees, you'll feel a certain amount of joy. If you lose 50 rupees, you'll feel a certain amount of sorrow. Right? So economists used to think that gain and loss were equivalent on the opposite side, where the joy that you get is like approximately, not exactly, approximately equal in the case of the gain as it is for the losses. So what Kahneman and Tversky came up with is that they said, no, people have different types of subjective values for gains and losses, which looks like this. So if you think this is joy and this is pain, if you think of this is being 50 rupees, this amount of joy that you can see is actually much less than the pain that you for the equivalent 50 rupees. The pain is much greater. So Kahneman and Tversky came up with this point that the way that people look at gains and losses is quite different. And the second thing they came up with is that most humans believe that a sure gain is better than a chance at a greater gain. Meaning, a bird in the hand is better than two in the bush. Right? On the other hand, people are more open to risk in the context of a loss than a surety.
explain that shortly. So of course these rules are not rigid, but they have done this experiment across the globe, all over the world, and they found that this is true. So this is what prospect theory is essentially talking about. And let me do a small exercise here. So all of you imagine that you are in an experiment and you are given two choices. Alternative A, I'm using dollars here, I think it's pretty much explained, right? $500. So alternative A is sure gain of $500. Alternative B is 50% chance of gaining 1000, 50% chance of getting 0. Okay, so that means alternative A, I'll call you and say here is $500, take it and be happy. Or alternative B, I'll say you toss a coin, if it comes head you get 1000, if it comes tail you get 0. So the question is, how many of you will choose alternative A? Can you raise your hands? Okay, 50. And how many of you will choose alternative B? Oh, it's completely skewed. Hardly anybody here and a lot of people here. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, 20. So 50, how many people are here? About 100, I think. So some of you have not responded, but okay. So 50 who will choose A and 20 who will choose B. Okay. Now, next experiment. Alternative C, which is sure loss of 500. That is, I will go to you and say, or alternative D, 50% chance of losing 1000, 50% chance of losing 0. So toss a coin. If the coin comes up head, you lose 1000. Or if the coin comes up tails, then you lose 0. Right? So how many of you will choose C? 1. And how many will choose B? Okay, majority of the class. Okay, notice something here. If you are rational human beings, the same 50 who said they would choose the sure 500 should have said they will choose the sure loss. Surety, no risk, right? But except for one person who said he would go for the sure, only rational person in this. Only one person said he will go for C. Everybody else is shifted. You have now gone to a risky situation, 50% chance of losing 1000. You have switched from being rational to being something else. You see that? So that's what Kahneman and Tversky were pointing out, that in the loss quadrant, when you have a chance of losing, your behavior changes from in the gain quadrant. Okay, let's take one more example. This is called the Asian disease problem. I don't know why it's called the Asian disease problem, why not the American or the African disease problem, but it's still. So disease outbreak is expected to kill 600 people and choose between 2 treatment options. So just assume that you are doctors. Program A, so your treatment A, that's the treatment A, you have to administer a medicine. 200 people will be saved. Program B, 1/3 probability that 600 people will be saved and 2/3 probability that no one is saved. So how many will choose program A? Please raise your hands. Okay, about 60. And choose program B, 1/3 probability that 600 will be saved and 2/3 probability no one will be saved. 10, 12, 13. Okay, 14. Okay. Okay, fair enough. Now let's look at the next one. Program C, you administer the treatment to your patients. Treatment C, 400 people die. And program D, 1/3 probability that nobody dies, 0 die. 2/3 probability that 600 people die. So how many will choose C? Raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. And how many will choose D? 1/3 probability that nobody will die and 2/3 that 600. Please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 plus 9 is 14. And there are 100 people in the class. So I need you to do better than that. Okay, let me ask again. How many will choose program C? 400. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9, okay. How many will choose D? 1/3 probability nobody will die and 2/3 probability 600 will die. Okay, now we have about 50. Still 50 plus 9 is not 100, but I'll accept it. So notice what has happened. Again you switch. 200 people will be saved is exactly the same as 400 people will die. Exactly the same. And yet you have switched. Right? And 1/3 probability that 600 people will be saved is 1/3 times 600. That is how much? 200. So 2/3 that no one will be saved is 2/3 times 0. So estimated value is exactly the same. Right? But the framing of that this is in terms of being saved and this one in terms of people dying has changed the way that you make your decision. You see what's going on? Just the framing has changed. So that was what Kahneman and Tversky came up with, that when you are faced with losses, you will start thinking differently than when you are faced with gains. And this is a better picture here. So again, gain of $50, you have this much of joy, but loss of $50, you have much greater pain. And this becomes important when you start thinking about mechanisms of security. Okay, I have 2 minutes left. So this was the intuition for us to come up with this paper, phishing email detection using persuasion cues. And basically what we said was, here we have prior literature which basically looks at various cues. The cues are like sender's address, logos, fonts, symbols, URL features, HTML structure and so on. Those are all cues. But there's not much research that use gains and losses, gain cues and loss cues. In fact, there is no research. Ours was the first. So what we said was that if you look at the emails that are coming in now, the phishers are sending in now, there is more and more where they lure people by offering rewards for compliance. That is, click on this link and claim your reward, or redeem your $50 gift card. So more and more of these are coming now, and so if you click on this link, then you will be much more safe. Or thank you for your loyalty. If you click on this link, and Villain will give you some gifts and so on. So those are gain persuasion cues, and then similarly there are loss persuasion cues. If if you don't click on this link, your service could be suspended, or your online account could be locked, or your account has been terminated. So these are all loss persuasion cues. And so our insight was that we need to look at these gain persuasion cues and the loss persuasion cues to essentially figure out if a mail is deception or not. So we collected data from an anti-phishing service called MIJAR, 17,000 unique phishing emails. And then for legitimate emails, we got it from the Enron corpus. Enron is a company that essentially went bankrupt, and then the government said, okay, whatever emails were transmitted is now public information because it's now become bankrupt. There was a huge scandal. But essentially, those emails are now available for research. We coded the queues and we ran. So among the queues, now we keep talking about Cialdini here. Cialdini is a psychologist at Arizona State University. He's written some very fascinating books on persuasion. So we looked at these different variables: reciprocity, consistency, likability for gain, and for loss, immediacy, severity. And then we ran some phishing detection models, knife-based, logistic regression, random forest and support vector machines. And eventually, these are the results, the 3 types of experiments that we conducted. And it turns out that when we use the cues, it turns out to be much better than the baseline model. So this is with the gain persuasion cues, this is with the loss persuasion cues, and this is with the gain and loss persuasion cues. So the implications are that in order to better understand what are deceptive emails, it is important to look at loss persuasion and gain persuasion as well, because the fishers have got to that level as well. So let me end there, and any questions or comments or
any questions from audience?
I know I'm standing between you and lunch, but if you have any questions.
I just triggered a question. What do the fishers really look at the people? Like we said, in fishing, they use certain cues. What psychology? You said psychology and fishing, they are related. So what really do you see in the minds of the people while using some of the techniques of phishing?
So the thing is, they are not really targeting any individual unless it is spear phishing. They are essentially trying to get you to click on a link and input your information. So they have all these general principles that they will follow and hope that somebody will fall for it. So I have fallen once for a phishing attack because, so what happened was I got an email saying that your, so there's this company in the US called FedEx. I don't know if there's FedEx here. No, there's FedEx here. Okay. So there's a FedEx parcel waiting for you, and the FedEx parcel that you have sent, please click on this link to track it. Now I clicked on that link because I had sent a FedEx parcel 2 days ago. So I was wondering, how did they know that I had sent a FedEx parcel? The answer is that they don't. They send out that link, that email to maybe 10,000. If 5 people click on the link and put in their information, that is good enough. So they It's not that they are targeting individuals, they are targeting the psychology of people, and hopefully somebody will fall for it. If 2 people fall in a day, that's good enough for them. I think you've seen this Netflix show called Jamtara. Huh? Something like that happens, right? They keep falling until somebody falls. SMS. They use SMS. Yeah. So they don't know each individual. They are sending out randomly. But some people think it is valid.
Yeah. Questions from students and other knowledge. Ask good questions.
You can ask me after lunch also.
My mic.
Hello, sir. Actually, recently, maybe not more than 30 days before, one of my friend who is using Paytm. So, after he went through his mobile, he came to know that some transactions have happened. So, 2 days before, when we just inquired 2 days before, he got the phishing link wherein he has given some KYC details. What has happened was like to his Paytm account, somebody else, some unknown guy, his credit card was linked and amount was from the person B's credit card, amount was transferred to my friend's Paytm account. From there, it has been paid in the format of a college fee to some XYZ. So, for he even he is a part of, he is an engineer and he is again a PhD holder. So he was so frustrated that even being such in a good position, I was fished and we discussed for half an hour and we went to a local police station and we just gave this information and they directly asked us to report to Mando Cybercrime where we just sent a mail and contacted these people. So that stopped there. But as of today, we didn't get any contact from the person from whom the amount has been withdrawn. So, but one thing is how we act in these situations. Public people, even educated people, don't know. That is one kiosk everybody will fall inside. So that is where I think these awareness talks may help us in some way to tackle. Yeah, there's one thing I just experienced 30 days before. Yeah.
Yeah, so everybody has to be on their guard. So anytime we can.
They ask us whether our details be saved. How safe it is to save us like that. Our credit card details, we type in. These payment gateways people know. Payment gateways people they ask whether this can be saved for further transactions. How safe it will be?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Many times we say never.
Yeah, it's probably better to say never. Yeah, because all that it means is one attack that is successful and then all your information is gone back. Yeah, better to say never.
Any more questions? Otherwise we will wind up.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I would like to express my deep sense of gratitude on behalf of Albaz Institute of Engineering and Technology, Albaz Foundation, and also Department of Studies in Computer Science, University of Mysore, for inviting you on this occasion to give a keynote address. You gave a very insight of what is fishing, and you said many things about the types of fishing, the research in fishing. It was really mind-blowing, and I personally feel that it is worth the potential talk that is given by you. Again, extend my warm thanks to you for having come. all the way from Texas and making this international conference successful. Thank you. Thank you.
Dr. H. Raghav Rao for his educative words. Thank you, sir. I also thank our session chair, Dr. Vasra Janami, for his presence. I request our HOD to present a memento as a token of gratitude.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you all. Now you will be having lunch break from 2 to 2:30, from 1:40 to 2:30. After that, you will be having paper presentation 1.